It brings us from chaos into order. It brings order to chaos. That's what culture does. Culture is powerful. European understands that. It binds us to each other. It gives us identity. It gives us a reason for surviving. And then it tells us who we should live for and who we should die for if we have to. Culture is an energy source for thriving. And it gives us a sense of security. It also puts us into a system of accountability. We are accountable to our ancestors. Now, when you're looking at all of that, and it's a template for living, then think about it. And it is a petri dish. So that African culture becomes a petri dish, it produces Africans. It cultivates Africans. And no other culture can make that statement. You hear me? No other culture can produce and cultivate Africans. Only African culture can do that. If we look at culture like that and see it as a means by which a people protect themselves, then we could understand culture as the immune system of a people. Think of people as an organism, and culture is that immune system, right? Okay. Now what does the immune system do? The immune system, you have the T cells, you've got the lymphocytes, which become the warriors, right? Their job is to recognize the antigens. An antigen is a foreign body which threatens the health of the whole. And that's where you get that seek and destroy. All right?
That's right.
Because their job is to neutralize or eliminate in any way that disease, that poison, those antigens, those things that work against the health of the whole. Okay? Now, we look at culture as that. Genetic memory, if you read the medical journals, is connected to the immune system. They all talk about that. And I'm fascinated with genetic memory. So that there are these memory cells which carry the knowledge and information about how to defeat the disease. And I'm saying culture is all of that. Right? Okay, so what happens? You got the Ma'afa. Everybody know what the Ma'afa is? The Ma'afa is a great disaster. That's the kidnapping of us and all of that. The disconnecting us from that cultural womb. Okay? The Ma'afa carries the virus. The virus is the Urubu virus. See, all of this is very culture specific. This is all about us. I ain't talking about anybody else right now. I'm talking about us. When we use the term Ma'afa, we're talking about an African experience, something that was done to us. We're not comparing it with anybody else's. If we did compare it with anybody else's, we would understand that it is the worst crime against humanity ever committed by one race of people. So it carries this virus. Now, while the Ma'afa is carrying the virus, the process of the Ma'afa is Europeans committing cultural genocide against African people. What is genocide? The killing of the genes. So they have always worked to erase our cultural memory. Why? You see, you erase the cultural memory. What is that going to do? It's going to destroy and break down the immune system. Is it not? Okay. So we become vulnerable. And what is the nature of a virus? A virus really has no life of its own. Right? Did you know that? A virus needs a host.
That's right.
And cannot be without being attached to that host. And And in the Ma'afa, we become hosts for the Yoruba. And that's what that's about.
It is not enough to write a revolutionary hymn to be a part of the African Revolution. One has to join with the people to make this revolution. Make it with the people, and the hymn will automatically follow. For an act to be automatic, one has to be a vital part of Africa and its thinking, part of all that popular energy mobilized for the liberation, progress, and happiness of Africa. Outside this single struggle, there is no place for either the artist or the intellectual who is not committed to totally mobilize with the people in the great fight waged by Africa and suffering humanity. And that is the statement by Sekou Touré. So moving on with Frantz Fanon. Each generation must discover its mission, fulfill it or betray it in relative opacity. In the underdeveloped countries, preceding generations have simultaneously resisted the insidious agenda of colonialism and paved the way for the emergence of the current struggles. Now that we are in the heat of combat, we must shed the habit of decrying the efforts of our forefathers and feigning incomprehension at their silence or passiveness. They fought as best they could with the weapons they possessed at the time, and if their struggle did not reverberate throughout the international arena, the reason should be attributed not so much to a lack of heroism, but to a fundamentally different international situation. More than one colonized subject has to say, "We've had enough." More than one tribe had to rebel. More than one peasant revolt had to be quelled. More than one demonstration to be repressed. For us today to stand firm, certain of our victory. For us who are determined to break the back of colonialism, our heroic mission is to authorize every revolt, every desperate act, and every attack aborted or drowned in blood. In this chapter, we shall analyze the fundamental issue of the legitimate claim to a nation. The political party that mobilizes the people, however, is little concerned with this issue of legitimacy. Political parties are concerned solely with the daily reality, and it is in the name of this reality, in the name of this immediacy, which influences the present and future of men and women, that they make their call to action. The political party may very well speak to the nation in emotional terms, but it is primarily interested in getting the people who are listening to understand that they must join in the struggle if they want to quite simply exist. Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. Happy Monday. Welcome back to On the Shoulders of Giants. I am Joseph Ward, continuing my reading of Frantz Fanon's book, The Wretched of the Earth, and I am on the chapter on national culture, which starts on page 145 and goes to page 179. 180. 145 to 180 is on national culture. So I started with the video of Dr. Marimba Ani giving us an explanation of what culture is, or rather what culture is supposed to be, what African culture, what Black culture is supposed to be, how it is supposed to work and cultivate its people. Now, in this chapter, in this book, we're going to explore how our culture has changed. And our culture has changed due to the influence of colonialism or white supremacy and the will of the, or the wanting to, of the bourgeoisie, or the educated class, or the leaders of the political people who want to assimilate into white culture. Assimilation into white culture in their minds is going to be the key to liberation. Hence, can we be liberated? Is assimilation the path to liberation, right? Of course, we're going to say no, that's the answer to that. But in the minds of those who see the white world as the free world, they have a need to assimilate because they see that as their freedom. They see that as their liberation. They see that as their sanctuary. If we're over here, we're free from the bondage. We're free from the poverty. We're free from the oppression. We're free from all the problems. But the problem with that is you're leaving out the masses. And also, You're setting yourself up for failure, especially for your Negro wake-up call, but your people will not advance like that. You can't keep taking the resources out of the community and expecting the community to grow, and then looking back and pointing your fingers at the community and saying, why aren't you growing? Well, you keep taking the resources out. At this point, the people are the resources. We have to remember that. Our people are the resources. We don't own much. We don't control much. We don't build much. We don't create much. So our people are the resources. So we're talking about, like I said, the fundamental issue of the legitimate claim of a nation. The political party that mobilizes the people, however, is little concerned with the issue of legitimacy, because the political parties are solely with daily reality, and in its name of this reality, in the name of this immediacy, which influences the present and the future of men and women, that they make that call to action. The political party may very well speak of the nation in emotional terms. I'm going to tell you stuff to make you feel good. Now, this chapter may hurt a lot of people's feelings because we are addressing the elephant in the room of the historian, the intellectual, the artist, the educator, the people who bring the emotionalism to the revolution. Like we said in the beginning, it's one thing to talk about the revolution. It's one thing to write about the revolution. It's one thing to create music about the revolution, but it's another thing to be a part of the revolution and actually make it happen. No, that's the reason why we started doing our breakdowns on Friday, is because, you know, we got tired of just the intellectualizing. We cannot intellectualize our way into liberation. We cannot assimilate our way into liberation. We have to take it. So let's jump back into the reading, page 146, the third paragraph. We know that in the first place of the national struggle, colonialism attempts to diffuse nationalist demands by manipulating economic doctrine. At the first signs of a dispute, colonialism feigns comprehension and acknowledging with ostentatious humility that the territory is suffering from serious underdevelopment that requires major social and economic reforms. And it is true that certain spectacular measures, such as the opening of work sites for the underdeveloped here and there, delayed the formation of a national consciousness by a few years. But sooner or later, colonialism realizes it is incapable of achieving a program of socioeconomic reforms that will satisfy the aspirations of the colonial masses. That's important. Even when it comes to filling their bellies, colonialism proves to be inherently powerless. The colonist state very quickly discovers that any attempt to disarm the national parties at a purely economic level will be tantamount to practicing in the colonies what it did not want to do in its own territory. So the colonists find themselves in the position where you've created this situation with these people, and these people depend on you, but you're not in a position to actually give them what they need. So these people go further into poverty. The disparities increase, the desperation increases. Right? So the people are between a rock and a hard place. The colonists, the colonizers who created the situation, don't have an answer for the situation. And the so-called leaders who are supposed to be helping to lead you out of the situation have no solution either, because the leaders are trying to ingratiate themselves with the white supremacists or the colonists. So the masses find themselves in a bad place, and the only people that can save the masses are the masses. I can see the fact that the actual existence of an Aztec civilization has done little to change the diet of today's Mexican peasants. I can see that whatever proof there is of a once mighty Songhai civilization does not change the fact that the Songhais today are undernourished, illiterate, abandoned to the skies and water, and a blank mind and glazed eyes. But as we have said on several occasions, this passionate quest for a national culture prior to the colonial era can be justified by the colonized intellectuals' shared interest in stepping back and taking a hard look at the Western culture in which they risk becoming ensnared. fully aware they are in the process of losing themselves and consequently being lost to their people. These men work away with ranging heart and furious mind to renew contact with their people's oldest inner essence and farthest removed from the colonial times. Let us delve deeper. Perhaps this passion and this rage are nurtured or at least guided by the sacred hope of discovering beyond the present wretchedness. Beyond this self-hatred, this abdication and denial, some magnificent and shining era that redeems us in our own eyes and those of others. I say that I have decided to delve deeper, since perhaps in their unconscious, the colonized intellectuals have been unable to come to loving terms with the present history of their oppressed people. Since there is little to marvel at it in its current state of barbarity, they have decided to go further, to delve deeper. They must have been overjoyed to discover that the past was not branded with shame, but dignity, glory, and sobriety. So, once again, getting into one of the reasons why we started doing the breakdowns. I love history. I love African history. I love Black history. I love the global history of the diaspora. I'm a historian. I advocate for us to know our history. But as I've grown on this journey, I've also realized that we should know our history and learn our history, but we have to live in the present, and we can't run from the present, and we can't run from our American history. I know a lot of people don't like to see the movies or hear the stories about what happened to our ancestors, but it is our history. We have the history of people in North America, Black people in North America, and Black people in the United States of America. Yes, we should know our history and we should celebrate our history, but we shouldn't celebrate our history to the point to where we use it as escapism from our current conditions. That's what he's getting at. Because we're so concentrated on the past, we want to remove ourselves from our actual history as Black people in America. And that's not going to happen. On one end, we're mad at the school systems. We're mad at the government. We're mad at white supremacists for wanting to systematically remove our history from the school systems. But on the other end, we don't want to learn our history, and we're afraid to face the actual history that we have here in America.